Hi, everyone. Welcome to Facilities U 402 from the floor up, how a frontline team member became a hospital facilities director. My name is Rose Torres. I'm the marketing manager at Leanside AI. One of the best things about facilities management is that there isn't just one path to leadership. Today's guest built his career from the ground up. Not every facilities leader starts with a desk. A lot of them start the way our guest did, doing the actual work on the floor, learning and building from the ground up. Donald Bowers began his career in environmental services and worked his way up to director of facilities at a hospital. Today, he's going to walk us through that climb, what he learned, what surprised him, and what it really takes to go from doing the work to leading the people who do it. Donald, welcome to Facilities U.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. That was a great intro.
We're very happy to have you. So let's start with a few questions, Donald, and
Sure.
take us back to the very start. What was your first job in this field, and what did a normal day look like back then?
Um, well, it first started when I was in college. Um, and this was like a little side job that you get just to keep money in your pocket,
Yes.
while you're in college, living in the dorms and all those things. Um, and it matriculated into something way larger than I ever expected,
Right.
honestly. Um, I mean, the intention was I was a pre-med student, so this was
Okay.
never on the radar at all.
Yes.
Um, But once again, it matriculated into something bigger. It went from just being um, someone that kind of helped clean an environment um, to help the patient feel better, um,
Right.
to understanding that, you're not just a janitor, as some may have viewed that role. You're actually a part of the healing process of a patient.
Exactly.
One of the most important departments in the hospital um, was environmental services and still is. So
Hmm.
once I got a clear understanding as to really where I was and what I was doing, um, yeah, that was when it was like, okay, well, I could do this, but I need to be on a different level of this business in order for my views and my outlooks on what we bring to this organization, and why we're called support services. Um, I can't do that from just being boots on the ground.
Yes.
So
Exactly.
that
How
that
old were you, by the way, Don?
how old am I now?
No. How old were you back then?
When I came over to EVS, it was '03. So I want to say started, I mean, oh my gosh, 40, 47. I think I was
Oh,
like 20s, early 20s.
wow. Yeah. Very young.
Yeah, yeah, it's like early 20s. Yeah.
Really young, right?
Yeah,
And
very.
what exactly made you want to move from doing the hands-on work into a leadership role? Like, was there a specific moment that pushed you to go for it?
Yes. So, I mean, I started my career in healthcare in '95. So it had started long before I got into this role.
Right.
I have been in other departments in the facility. I mean, in the hospital with the overall goal of my goal was to be, if I couldn't be a doctor, I was going to be the CEO of my own hospital.
Hmm.
That was the goal.
Wow.
So when I came into EVS, it was just one of those things where I kind of just lucked upon the position in a sense. And what I mean by luck, meaning that it was just something to do while I was in college to have money. I never thought that I was going to be exposed to some of the things that I saw is some of the experiences. But what caused me to, or what motivated me to want to get into the leadership side is because um, I didn't like the way it was viewed.
Okay.
I didn't like the way the department was looked upon in the organization. And I
Okay.
had been at this time I was working at a hospital in Alabama, in Huntsville, Alabama, where I went to
Right.
college. Um, and just remembering growing up, and I'm born and raised in Chicago, just remembering how EVS was viewed in Chicago, it didn't register because I never worked there
Okay.
until I got to working there in Alabama. Like, wow, we are not looked at in the way that we should be looked at.
Hmm.
Um, and also being very transparent with some of the people who I work with. I understood why we didn't get looked at the way we were supposed to. We didn't carry ourselves as such.
Okay.
So just really truly understanding that, yeah, I want to change the narrative. I want to change the way EVS is viewed in the
Okay.
facilities that I work at.
Sorry for the interruption, but how was
Hmm.
it viewed?
In some aspects, it's viewed as, you know, it's viewed as a department of people who, don't want more out of life,
Okay.
or um, aren't smart,
Oh, okay.
aren't, just kind of people who just are old, and, they have the whole janitor stigma.
Yes.
Um,
There's a
and
stigma. Yeah.
there definitely is. And, I just wanted that to change. I didn't like that, and I never experienced it until I got in that role.
Okay.
Um, for example, even as something as simple as we would walk past a nursing station, and they
Hmm.
would drop something on the floor, and they would just say, "Well, I'm not picking it up. EVS will pick it up. They ain't got nothing better to do."
Okay.
It'll be things like that, right? Or if something's happening down the hall where there's a loud noise, it would automatically be assumed that EVS did it. Or if something came up missing from someone's office, sometimes it'll be assumed that EVS did it because that department hires anyone. The standards for hiring, and, were not viewed upon as the highest because it
Yes,
was one of the lowest paid departments in the hospital.
definitely. Do you think
Um,
it's still stigmatized though?
Absolutely,
Hmm.
absolutely. And I hate to
Probably
say that.
yes, maybe. Or do you think it's the same stigma as 20 years ago?
Um, I think it depends on where you are geographically.
Oh, oh,
That's something
interesting.
I've seen because I worked at hospitals here, um, Tennessee, Georgia, Alabama, Detroit. Oh my gosh, Texas. I've been all over with this EVS world.
Okay.
Um, and depending on where you are geographically, we're viewed differently. Um, but a nice chunk of those places that I've been to, it wasn't viewed with the same lens as
Okay.
other departments.
Got it. Interesting. And what was that specific moment where you said, okay, I have to pursue something different?
Um, the moment when it changed for me to want to maneuver up into the leadership role was the moment I worked at a hospital and they were all fighting to get a union.
Okay.
I didn't see a need for a union. What I did see was poor communication from leadership.
Okay.
So I remember I was in college and I was so frustrated because I didn't have a lot of money as it was. So all I
Mhm.
kept hearing was that when you get a union, they're going to take money out of my check, and I
Right.
was just like, I'm already not making a lot of money. I can't afford for anything else to come out.
Right.
Um, so I called my father at home and I was just like really upset. And so he told me, he said, well, be the change you want to see.
Exactly.
Figure out how to get into leadership and be the type of leader where they won't need to have a third party to speak and represent them. And that was when I started my journey to get into leadership, and fighting the stigma of causing staff members to want to feel like they have a third party because we
Yes.
can't communicate. And it was easier for me because I once one of them, so I knew some of the issues that they faced. I knew some of the issues that um, the hospital faced in dealing with them when you hire the wrong person.
Right.
So I started my journey of leadership then.
That's so interesting and admirable as well. I
Thank you,
congratulate you.
thank you, thank you.
That is an awesome experience. And when you got your first leadership title, what was like the hardest part of managing people that who used to be your peers?
Mhm. Um, the hardest part was just getting them, I say, to accept the fact that I'm no longer one of them.
Okay.
So
Wow.
as I hire new leaders, as I train new leaders, in this current day, I am always a fan of promoting from within. It
Yes.
boosts morale, It just really helps overall a lot of times. It lowers the turnover rate. It's so many benefits to promoting from within, especially when you have a good career progression program.
Okay.
Um, but one of the toughest things was getting my former colleagues to see that, hey, we're not colleagues anymore.
Exactly.
I was
That's
never
hard.
that guy, and me, it definitely is tough.
Yeah.
So it's tough for some, but not for others. I found that most of the staff members that was my age, that I kind of work with, they had it difficult. But most of the older staff members, they understood. They knew more than we did. You know, they understood that, hey, he's our boss now. He's not one of us. He's not sneaking out when we sneak out for smoke breaks. Like he's not sleeping in the closet, in between, cleanings. So, and one of the things that I did when I got promoted, I
Hmm.
didn't go air out all of their dirty laundry and tell all of their secrets.
Of
I
course
just
not.
made sure that I made it very clear, not on my watch,
Okay.
so just establishing that, and it ruffled some feathers, it broke up some relationships.
Yes.
There were some challenges involved,
Yes.
but
It's human, I think, right?
yeah, absolutely,
Yeah. Yeah. We
absolutely.
have trouble, like with those sort of things.
Yeah,
Yes.
we do.
Yeah.
We do.
What was your first title, by the way?
Oh man, I dove in deep. My first title was supervisor. It was a shift supervisor.
Okay. Okay. Interesting.
I was
Right.
up here in Chicago, and I had like 200 staff members on my shift.
So now, as a facilities director, so what's one skill from your time doing the frontline work that still helps you every single day as a director?
Not being afraid to get in there and do some work.
Okay.
Whether I have a suit on or just a regular polo shirt. If I see one of my staff members bombarded with some work, I'll hop in and grab a broom. I'll hop in and grab a dustpan. I am no stranger to helping my engineers because I also deal with facilities and engineering as well as EBS.
Yes.
Um, I'll stand and hold the bottom of the ladder while they climb up there to unscrew something, or like I'll help. I'll help. And I've held some pretty high positions. And with my last company, I said as a regional VP. So I've held some positions where it kind of was like, no, we don't really do that. And I've always been that person to, I understand how it feels. I know where you come from. And also it helps me kind of not lose touch because
Exactly.
I've grown and I've come
Exactly.
from, I don't want to lose touch of a day in the life of our frontline staff members.
And that's very admirable, that you're not just sitting down, in front of a computer and in a desk, right? Just supervising. If something needs
Yes.
to be done, you do it. Yes,
Yep.
I admire that mentality. I think that some people lack that mentality, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
But no, I congratulate you. That's very admirable.
Well, a few years ago, I worked at Chicago Public School System
Right.
under Sodexo Magic, which is I think Magic Johnson's portion of Sodexo. Um, and one of the things that I remember hearing them say on our meetings was, we didn't hire people to be bosses. We hired people to be leaders.
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
at the time, I was like, what is that? Like, what does that mean? And so when I said it, did some research, and I was like, oh, okay. I want to be a leader. I mean, there's a time and place for everything. But I found that I've gotten way more success um, leading people than I have just bossing people. I mean, I've even had some of my staff members go off to become nurses, or
Okay.
some, who started off in EVS. Like it wasn't, for most of the people I encountered, it wasn't the end all be all. It was just a gateway into the healthcare industry. Um,
Interesting.
there were some hospitals I worked at, we did like second chance programs,
Okay.
for guys and gals who had just get out of the, penal system, or, jail. Um, for some of them, it was a transition, and then you had some who were older people who didn't want to sit at home, and they
Okay.
didn't aspire to be more than just, they just want to keep busy. I
Yes.
felt like that department is welcoming for all different walks. Um, And I wanted to embrace all of those different walks. And that's just been my claim to fame.
Right. And for example, now that you're running a hospital, like hospitals run differently than other
Mhm.
buildings, right? So what's something about keeping a hospital clean and running that most people outside of the field would never guess?
So they have these things called duty list,
Okay.
which literally is what it says. It's a list of duties.
Yes.
Some of the hospitals that are super clean,
Mhm.
is because they mastering the duty list.
Oh,
They
wow.
they do it right, right? And those are some of the things that you won't see as you walk down the hall. But some of the hospitals now who has adapted to the AI process, or
Mm.
who has adapted to electronics, versus old school where you had a piece of paper, you did a bunch of checks all day, and then nowadays things are electronic. So those hospitals that are evolving with the times are
Yes.
are, are actually the ones that are doing it right. And the hospitals that pour into their people, those hospitals that make their staff feel welcome, um, the work is going to show, and they're doing it right.
And let me ask you something. So when you talk about this duty list, where do you
Mhm.
have it? Like, is it a system, a CMMS? How do you manage it?
So it depends. It depends on what your facility is. You have some hospitals where they're tapped into CMMS.
Mhm.
So that way facilities and engineering, as well as EVS, as well as anyone else, can
Right.
communicate directly to EVS their needs. And then you have some hospitals where they just have a tablet that has pretty much a floor map of every nook and cranny of the hospital. And
Okay.
so you pick a floor that you're working on, and it just goes throughout your shift and tells you where to go.
Okay.
Um, so it just depends on where you are, and kind of geographically, and what type of hospital you work at.
And what do you prefer? How are you currently working?
Um, I prefer the CMMS way.
Yeah.
I've implemented that and deployed that at some hospitals, to be more efficient and effective. You know, it kind of so what it does for me. The reason why I thought about that, at a hospital I had in Detroit, was
Okay.
that they were kind of far off the beaten path, like kind of off in the country a little bit.
Yes.
Um, but when I was there working, I went to Walmart, and somebody had spilt something in Walmart, and they announced it over the overhead. And I was standing like down the aisle from that person, and they
Mhm.
looked really embarrassed. And the lady was like, "Dang, why did they have to tell all my business to everybody in the store?" You know. So I was just thinking, like, what if there was a way to communicate that same thing without telling the masses? you
Exactly.
know, right? So, um, while we were down there, I was just like, hey, is there any way that we could tie in to that, where these departments can communicate to each other, like a work order system in a sense,
Right.
there at that facility? And so they figured out a way to do that, where they could create like a work order system, uh, for not only just the engineering piece. So if your light bulb goes out or your door handle breaks, they have a work order system for that. But there was no work order system for EVS. It was just typically, hey, just go outside and find the EVS worker and let them know that this trash is full, you know. Whereas, you know, putting it into a system that comes directly to that person without a whole bunch of other people knowing, per se,
Exactly.
it's just streamlined that process. And I found that to be very successful in a lot of places.
So did you develop this system? Did you buy it?
Oh no, 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 no. This has already existed. We just figured out a way to tie in. So the CMMS is often used for your facility side,
Right.
right? And some places have EVS embedded into facilities.
Okay.
Here in Chicago, most of them don't. EVS has their own channel on the radio. They have their own entity. But there's some few places here that has facilities. The name facilities is like facilities and maintenance. So EVS falls up under the maintenance side, and they communicate with each other very clearly. And if you go into the system and you put in, hey, I'm going to be going, for PTO for 5 days, and I would like to have my light bulbs bright changed because it's too dim in here. By the way, can someone come in and do a deep cleaning while I'm gone? Like, you can put that in the system, and the system it separates. the light bulb from the cleaning, because those are two different departments.
Yes, definitely.
So no, I didn't create it. Just a lot of places I've helped figure out how to streamline that process to make us more efficient and effective.
Oh, interesting. And your hospital, like, uh, uh, what would be like the most important features that a CMMS have needs to have?
Most important features. Oh man, that's a good one. Um, I think that what it would need to have is a very clear, um, more up to date architectural setting. So what I mean by that is what I found in my experience that I've seen there's been some challenges is um, in CMMS, you would go in and you would get a new employee and their area of the building would not be updated as the building got updated.
Okay.
So there would be rooms missing. And I know it sounds like a one-off, but I've really seen this a lot lately.
Okay.
And just all over the country I've been, Austin, Texas, all the way to Racine, Wisconsin. Um, having that updated system where it really speaks to wherever you're going. Because that can be the conversation, that could be a deal breaker for someone. That could be
Yes.
someone having a very good day to someone having a very bad day, because
Exactly.
they didn't get something done and they think they're all done. It could be someone missing a room that isn't in their system and could end up in a corrective action, depending on the severity of the room or what's going on.
Yes.
So having that information in there where it speaks to that site square footage, where it speaks to every nook and cranny and inch of that facility. So therefore, if we're doing it the electrical way or the electronic way, you look at your tablet and you say, hey, I have the third floor today. Here's the whole schematics of the third floor. So this is what I'm required to clean. And you know where to go. Um, I've seen places that do it and do it well, and everybody feels, they feel good about their shift. They feel good about their day. I've
Right.
seen places that don't do it well, where, the workers are feeling frustrated because they're being told that they have to do something that they were never told that they had to do before, or it's
Okay.
not, in their hands. So,
Yeah. So you need a system that works and that gives you full visibility, right?
yeah, full
Yeah.
visibility.
Yeah, definitely. Especially in this kind of facilities, that where the your operation is complex. And
Yes.
it's, yeah, and also we're talking about patients, right? So it's
Hmm.
yeah, so it's important to have visibility, right?
Yeah.
Interesting. And going back a little bit to leadership.
Hmm.
So tell us something. How do you keep your team motivated when the work is actually physically demanding and it often goes unnoticed by everyone else in the building? How do you do that?
Well, for me in particular, by trade and by skill, I'm a motivational speaker. Um,
Oh,
so that comes a little easier for me. But also building the trust, getting my team to trust me, for one, because most of the time I always talk about my experience as far as the work,
mhm.
not to brag, but to motivate, right?
Okay.
And to help people understand that you just don't have to be behind the broom or the mop or the machine. You can actually get into leadership from here, for one. For two, I spend time with my leaders as well as my team to make sure that we all understand the overall goal and we're constantly working towards that goal. Um, I'm a sports guy, so I can get a little competitive sometimes. So sometimes I'll, offer to purchase lunch for someone whose area passes with the perfect inspection almost, or so on and so forth. But I spend time. I am a hands-on leader. I know when to sit in the office and
Sure.
go over policies and have meetings. But I'm also a walker. Every facility I go to, I walk. I walk the facility around with a purpose. And the purpose isn't just to be a I got you moment. It's an educational moment. It's also a moment for someone in the facility, nursing staff, medical staff, patients as well. I do patient roundings. I pop in on my patients
Right.
and see how they're doing. Um, and I talk to the patients, sometimes with the staff, sometimes without the staff. And I think that motivates my staff because I'm not just walking around saying, hey, why
Exactly.
did you do this? Why didn't you do that? I also walk around and say, hey, I just stopped in to check on this patient and they said you were awesome. Great job. I do those things, and I have found that those things have motivated my staff, has boosted morale. Because when I was in their role, that wasn't being done to us. I didn't get that. And I've always wanted leadership to come when there weren't complaints and give compliments over complaints and just not come when someone didn't like something. Um, so I do that, and I think that really boosts the morale of my staff and it motivates my staff. I'll even have it where I have staff calling me periodically, like, "Hey, where are you? Y'all hiring? Because I'll come wherever you are." Those type of things. So
And this aligns with what your profile says. Leadership is an action, not a position, right?
absolutely,
Yeah,
absolutely,
totally. So motivational speaker, wow.
yeah.
That is awesome. And I have a last question for you. So if
Okay.
someone just starting out in facilities asks you for one piece of advice, what would you tell them?
Don't forget your why.
Interesting.
Um, we aren't only there to, make it make a salary, right? We're there to make sure that the person that's laying in that bed can focus on healing. Um, we are a team member of a team with all different skill sets. I mean, in basketball, you have the center, you have a point guard, like you have different roles, right? And we all have a different role. But the why is to make sure that that patient comes there, focus on healing, and going back home or to wherever they came from. Um, these are the conversations I have when I have my monthly meetings sometimes with my department heads, with my staff, with other leaders, with nursing for staff, C-level executives. You can't forget your why because we'll get caught up in the day to day. It's easy to get caught up. It's easy to get frustrated when things
Yes.
aren't going well. As leaders, it's easy to get upset when you're not meeting your budget, but you're understaffed and you feel like you're overworked. The expectations don't adjust, but your staffing is like scarce.
Mhm.
Um, it's easy as a staff member to know that you work with some staff members who don't have the same work ethic. They call off all the time. They never be found, and
Right.
they're not being held accountable, or they're related to someone and they get away with things. Nepotism is a real thing, whether we want to act like it is or not. Um, but I always say, don't forget your why, because that's what I tell myself when I run into tough situations, or I work for companies and my contract ends, and now I'm back on the market again looking for another, role. I don't forget my why. And my why is to make sure that if I see one of my patients, um, in the Walmarts of America, I've had a few say, "Hey, thank you for coming to check on me, because I know that's not part of your job. Thank you for making sure that my room stay clean and fresh for my family to come or for me to be there." Like that's my why. So I just tell them always to don't forget your why.
That is so awesome. Let me give you an applause for that.
No need. Thank you though.
We have to learn from you, definitely. I think that the facilities community will be very happy to listen to this episode. And that's a wrap on Facilities U402. Donald, thank you for showing us that you don't need to start at the top, right, to end up leading from the front. And to everyone
Absolutely.
watching, if you're just starting out doing work that feels small or unnoticed, it's not. It's a foundation for everything that comes next. Learn from the job, treat people well, like Donald mentioned, and lead by example. So thank you all for joining us. Donald, keep showing up, keep growing, and we'll see you next time on Facilities U.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Donald.
Sure. Thank you. That was awesome. That was fun.
It was
I don't know.
very good. I'm very impressed. I deeply